This is the Camp Chef Woodwind Pro 36. This is one of the most innovative pellet grills on the market, but that doesn't come without problems. That doesn't come without complaints or wishes, but it comes with a lot of success behind it as well. Today, we're gonna talk everything Woodwind Pro, everything from how to use it, what I have learned and the way that I utilize the functions of this grill, to my successes and even to my failures and to some of the shortcomings of the grill, or to some things that you gotta be aware of when you get it. Now, let's dive right down in to this 11-month review of the Woodwind Pro. Now, when it comes to this Camp Chef Woodwind Pro, I would be lying to you if I told you that this wasn't my favorite grill that I currently have. In fact, when I am grabbing something out of the grill to cook on, most of the time, it is the Camp Chef Woodwind Pro. I love the versatility, I love the flavor that it adds to the food, and I love the ease of use. I've cooked everything from steaks to pork butts to briskets to quick little appetizers, pretty much everything that you can think of. And over the past 11 months, I have hundreds of hours of use on this pellet grill. But like I said, that doesn't come without problems. But before we talk about some of the shortcomings and issues that I may have had with the grill, let's talk a little bit about the grill itself. The Camp Chef Woodwind Pro obviously is in the form of a pellet grill, but it doesn't have the highest temperatures or direct flame capabilities like some of the other pellet grills on the market. But the reason behind that is because the Woodwind Pro has their all-new smoke box feature, which allows you to really hammer your food with real hardwood or charcoal smoke. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it is incredible the flavors that this can produce, especially when you compare it to other pellet grills on the market or even other pellet grill offerings from Camp Chef themselves. That smoke box is legit. One of my favorite things about the Woodwind Pro and all of the Camp Chef grills in general is right here. That is the Sidekick. That makes this grill the most versatile pellet grill or smoker on the market. I use this from preparing sides or appetizers to searing steaks. I've boiled water on this, or I've cooked on the burner itself. I also have the deluxe barbecue grill box that sits right down in there, and I can use that to get those perfect grill lines on a steak. And because of that and what this smoker can accomplish, it is incredible. You know, one of the things that I see people complain about this pellet grill is the stainless steel construction and kind of the staining and the discoloration that they can see from that. It's a grill, not a trophy in your trophy case. Now granted, if you do your due diligence and keep up with the cleaning, it looks good and it'll stay looking good, but you will see some discoloration where some of the smoke may escape. You'll also see it around the smoke box, but really it doesn't impede the functionality and it doesn't really hinder the quality of the material. One of the best features about having this mostly stainless steel construction, at least when it comes to the body of the grill itself, is the fact that we're not dealing with any paint issues. Anyone who has had pellet grills in the past know that if you have a grease fire or you run this thing too hot or you get some slop down the front of it and you don't clean it up afterwards, you're gonna have issues with your paint. Well, with the stainless steel body, you don't have that problem. And if you keep up with cleaning it, you're not gonna have much staining or discoloration. To be honest with you, I love the stainless steel construction and I hope that they continue on with this in all of their premium pellet grills in the future. One of the other features that I really love about this is how they put the gasket here. This honestly seals up the chamber very, very well, and we have very little smoke escaping from the lid itself. Whereas some of the other grills from them, you did have that gap and you did see some smoke escaping from it. Another question that I get all the time is related to temperature and the smoke box. Everybody thinks that the addition of that smoke box and that additional fuel and fire is going to impede on the performance of the grill. I haven't personally seen any significant swings, though I do think it contributes a little bit to the temperature inside of the smoker, but there is a nice feature to that. When I'm doing a long smoke, which I have been doing quite a few long smokes, catering for some parties for my friends and family lately, I've noticed that pellet consumption seems to stay down a little bit more. So, you know, in a hopper of this size, I'm getting 15, 18, 20 hours of cook time with that hopper, especially when I fill it up. So I don't really have any concern of running out of fuel on a long cook. Now, when it comes to temperature, there is one thing that I have noticed, and I'll admit I haven't done my biscuit test or any real temperature test with this, But the smoke box itself, I do think contributes to a little bit of heat, because you'll notice on the drip tray that it seems to run a little bit hotter just due to the coloration there. And I also noticed on one of my last cooks, I did a brisket and a pork shoulder simultaneously. I ran a probe on the upper shelf, which is where I had the meat, and I had it running at 250. Now, typically those upper shelves are going to contribute to lower temperatures, just being further away from the heat source. But with the grill set to 250 and that probe centered right on that upper rack, I did see the grill running at 250 pretty consistently on that upper rack, which typically isn't what happens when you put the food up there. That's usually why we're putting it on those upper racks, to avoid more of that direct heat or those higher temperatures. While we're on the topic of the smoke box itself, I will tell you right now that the food that comes off of this grill when you're using the smoke box is unlike any other pellet grill on the market. And that is 100% honesty. And by the way, this video is not sponsored by anybody. This is my honest opinion, and this is coming from hundreds of hours of operation that I have had with this Woodwind Pro. I am seeing bark, I am seeing flavors, and I'm seeing smoke rings like I've never seen on a pellet grill before. Is it quite to the extent of an offset? Not quite, but as you saw in my comparison video with the Masterbuilt Gravity Series 800, which is notably one of the smokiest grills on the market right now, and people who are truly looking for the convenience of a pellet grill, but the smoke of an offset, they have found that the Masterbuilt Gravity Series is the closest thing to that. But I can tell you that in my test of comparing this with beef ribs to the Masterbuilt Gravity Series, that the bark was more substantial. My taste tester said that the smoke itself was a little bit smokier on the Masterbuilt, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it was so close that it doesn't matter if you're used to offset smokers or vertical smokers or whatever, you wouldn't tell the difference, and you would have enjoyed any piece of beef rib that came off of either of those grills. But with that being said, that says a lot about what this Woodwind Pro is capable of. I mean, we are achieving smoke to the extent that we've never achieved before. And with that, I do want to make one comment about the smoke box, is depending on what you're cooking, you can actually over smoke it. I did some burgers on here, my typical smoked burger recipe on here, and I ran hickory wood in the smoke box for almost the entire time that they were in, and they were on the verge of being too much. Like, had I not run it for maybe the last half hour, 45 minutes, it would have been perfect. But they were a little bit on the smoky and even almost to the pungent side of being smoky. They came out, they were like blistering red. It was crazy. With that being said, you kind of have to be careful in terms of the wood that you're using and how long you're smoking. On a brisket, on a chicken, on a turkey, on a pork shoulder, things that are gonna be cooking for a while or things that typically don't absorb smoke that well, you can hammer it, no problem. I've run a couple briskets through this, I've run some pork shoulders through this, and run a ton of hardwood chunks of wood through this for hours and hours on end, and never had a problem with over smoking it. Burgers, I will say, I noticed it, and even some appetizers that were in the grill for an hour, hour and a half, I have seen a little bit of smokiness, a little more smokiness than I would have liked. So keep in mind when you're running that. Now, to talk a little bit about some of the things I would have liked to have seen. I love the upper shelf option. Personally, I don't know if having two half shelves is ideal. I think I would like one solid shelf, just because it seems like when I'm using it, when I'm not, I'm not, and I would like it to be a little bit more sturdy. Also, I've seen grills that have little tabs that kind of lock the upper shelves in place, so you kind of have to get them at an angle to get them in and out, but they do lock in place, whereas these kind of seem a little bit sloppy. Now, one thing that I will say, I had a slight issue with my Woodwind Pro when I got it. Now, I believe it was damaged in shipping. The box had some indications of either being dropped or banged around, but the grill itself looks flawless, except in one little spot, and that's right here on the corner. Now, there's no big dents, there's no big indentations, but the wall over here seems to be kicked out just a tiny little bit, and you can see kind of a point of impact where something may have happened. Now, granted, I could have reached out to Camp Chef. They would have sent me a brand new chamber, but it really wasn't worth it because it didn't affect it. It didn't destroy the surface of the grill. Everything seems to work. The only problem that I had was because that wall got widened out a little bit, the front rack, when weight was put on it, especially on this side, had a tendency to kind of fall out of the groove. And to explain that a little bit more, the space, because this was widened, where the racks attach was a little bit wider, so it wasn't in there as securely. So what I did is I took 3 washers of my own, I pulled the bolt and nut out for that front edge of the bracket up here, and I added those washers, and it brought that rack back in place. And now everything fits fine. When I ran a 17-pound brisket and a 10-pound pork shoulder on those upper racks, there was zero fear of that thing dumping, no problems whatsoever. Now that's not the fault of the design, that's not the fault of Camp Chef, but I have seen people have issues with that in the past, and I have attributed it to this side being a little bit out of square, and I think that's due to some issues with shipping. Like I said, Camp Chef would have taken care of that had I reached out. I didn't think it was a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal. I fixed it myself, no problem. Now, another thing that I would like to see, and they took a big step up in their last few releases because they went to 4 caster wheels. It makes moving this thing around the driveway, the patio, the garage, so easy. But here, as you can see, I'm out in my backyard. My backyard isn't the most even surface, partially because I have 2 big dogs, and pulling it in and out of the yard can be kind of crazy. So off-roading really isn't recommended, especially because this thing's pretty heavy. Now, I would like to see an offering of some off-road wheels where you can upgrade this to like some 8-inch like solid rubber wheels, something that would do a little bit better off-road. It would make this grill move so much better, especially when we're kind of off-road. I'm actually going to look into some Harbor Freight options and some Amazon options because I believe the hole pattern that they use for these wheels is kind of an industry standard. I'm not 100% sure on that, so I'll experiment and I'll let you guys know how that works. But I think that that will work. Another problem that I've had in the past is related to the smoke box. It's kind of self-inflicted, but it's something to be aware of. Now, when you're using the smoke box, you basically have this, we're going to say 4x4 cube, metal cube that you can stuff your fuel source or your smoke source into. Now, if you leave any of that media, any of that fuel source sticking out of the top of the smoke box, even if it goes through the front of opening of the grill, you can actually hit like the bracket and the housing that the smoke box goes into. And I will tell you, if you're not careful, you can knock that out of sync with the rest of the grill, and you can't push the smoke box in all the way, which causes issues. And if you've got something in there running and it's been in there running for hours at a time, you can't exactly just pull this thing apart because it's loaded up with food, it's hot as heck. And in order to fix that, you basically have to pull your food out, pull the grates out, pull the drip tray out, and then you have to readjust that and get it in place. If this thing is hot, that's nearly impossible. So it is very good to know that when you're loading up your smoke box, you are not going beyond the top of that box. That is not a design flaw of the grill. That's not an issue with the smoker or the smoke box. That is operator error. But I will tell you, I've done it a couple times early on. Now I know when I put it in, I make sure that there's nothing beyond the top of that smoke box. Now, when it comes to this Woodwind Pro, I have actually had an issue, but this grill here technically is like an early run. I don't know if it was exactly pre-production, but very possible that it could be because I had this before it was announced to the public. In that very early or pre-production run, they used a material on a bracket inside of the hopper that has to do with the auger. And in one of my prime rib videos back around Christmas, it actually broke. That bracket broke, and it was due to a material not being strong enough to withstand some of the pressures that the auger would face. Now, like I said, this grill was pre-production. I made a quick call to Camp Chef. They sent me a brand new hopper, and they assured me that really the public wasn't going to see that they had already changed the design, they had already changed the parts out. But it is fair to be honest that it was an issue that I had. But I'm glad that they recognized it really quickly, and it was on these pre-production runs, so everyone who got the grill and is getting the grill today isn't gonna have that issue. But if you saw that video, I didn't get a chance to explain what happened, and so that's what I'm doing today. All in all, this is an incredible piece of equipment. This is an incredible smoker. When it comes to smoking versus grilling, it's not the greatest grill, but that's because it doesn't have that direct flame like you have on others. And I'll tell you right now that if you have a Camp Chef and you don't have a Sidekick with the griddle and the grill box, you're doing something wrong. And that's not a sales pitch to sell the Sidekick. It just offers something that nobody else offers, and it is incredible. I love it. I love the way I sear steaks on it and I finish off some food on it. But in terms of this is an incredible smoker. It puts out great food, and if you're looking for something beautiful on your patio and you're looking for something that can smoke some great food and give you the options of some great steaks and burgers, especially with this Sidekick, then I think this Woodwind Pro is for you. Now personally, the 36 is massive, and if you're not cooking for a bunch of people, you can probably get away with the 24. But I am super happy with this. I'm super happy to have this in my garage because, like I said, 95% of the time when I'm cooking something for us, it's on this. Now, if you like this Woodwind Pro and you like this video, then I suggest you check out this one right here.